You know that feeling before your eyes even open, that invisible pressure sitting on your chest. Another morning arrives, but your mind is already awake, is already loud. The same thoughts rush in like clockwork. You're behind. You're failing. What if everything collapses? Different day, same mental storm. You try to shut it down. It fights back. You try to ignore it. It gets louder. You resist, argue, distract. And somehow you're exhausted before the day even begins. Fear whispers worst-case scenarios. Anger simmers just beneath the surface. Anxiety tightens around your throat, squeezing the air out of the moment. And here's the truth no one says out loud. Fighting yourself is the most isolating battle you'll ever fight. So you scroll, you numb, you keep busy. Anything to escape the noise, but the noise follows you. Because it's not outside, it's inside. You weren't meant to live trapped in your own head, reacting instead of choosing, surviving instead of living, being ruled by emotions you never asked for. And yet here you are, like millions of others, stuck in a cycle you didn't consciously choose. But what if the problem isn't the thoughts themselves? What if the real issue is what you were taught to do with them? What if fear didn't have to freeze you? What if anger didn't have to consume you? What if anxiety could exist without controlling you? Because it can, and that's what this journey is about. This isn't motivation. This isn't theory. This is freedom. If you've ever felt tired of battling your own mind, if something inside you is quietly saying, there has to be another way, then you're exactly where you need to be, right now. You're standing at a crossroads most people never reach. A moment where awareness begins. So make it real, not tomorrow, not someday, now, and ask yourself this, honestly. How much of your life has already been stolen by this inner conflict? How many conversations did you half live because your mind was elsewhere? How many peaceful moments were poisoned by fear of what might happen next? You didn't lose those moments because life was cruel. You lost them because your mind was untrained. But that can change, because once you see the war for what it really is, you can stop fighting blindly. And in the next part, we'll uncover why most people never escape this mental prison. And why you already have. Part 2. Why most people never escape this cycle. Here's the hard truth most people never confront. They don't escape the inner war because they don't even realize they're in one. They assume this constant tension is normal, that overthinking is just intelligence, that emotional exhaustion is the price of adulthood, that living inside your head is simply how life is. So they adapt, they cope, they normalize suffering. Years pass, decades pass, and slowly, without noticing, they shrink. They stop asking for what they want because rejection feels dangerous. They stop trying because failure feels personal. They stop dreaming because disappointment hurts too much. What's tragic is not that life is hard. What's tragic is that people accept unnecessary suffering as inevitable, but something inside you didn't. That's why you're here. Maybe it was a breaking point, maybe pure exhaustion, maybe one quiet morning where you realized, I can't keep living like this. Whatever brought you here doesn't matter. What matters is the recognition you've reached. This has to change, not later, not when things calm down, not when life becomes easier, now, because the cost of staying the same is too high. You're too young to feel this old, too alive to feel this numb, too capable to feel this powerless. And here's something crucial. You don't need to fix yourself. You're not broken. You don't need to eliminate negative thoughts if that's impossible. You don't need to become emotionless or detached. What you need is a new relationship with what's happening inside you. You need to understand the difference between what's within your control and what never was. You need to learn how to observe emotions without letting them hijack your actions. You need tools that have already been tested, not by influencers, but by people who faced real chaos. Because this struggle isn't new. 2,000 years ago, people faced uncertainty, loss, betrayal, injustice, fear of the future, just like you do now. Some of them discovered a way to remain steady while everything around them shook. They weren't hiding from life. They were deep inside it. Emperors, slaves, soldiers, advisors surrounded by danger. They were called Stoics. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire during plagues and wars. Epictetus began life in chains and built a philosophy of inner freedom. Seneca lived among power and corruption and still faced death with composure. Their lives weren't calm. Their minds were trained. And one idea changed everything for them. An idea that can change everything for you too. You have power over your mind, not over events. That single distinction is the doorway out of suffering. And in the next part, we'll break down the core Stoic principle that ends unnecessary suffering, and why most people resist it. Part 3. The line that ends most suffering. There is one mistake that fuels almost all human suffering. Not pain, not hardship, not loss. The mistake is trying to control what was never yours to control. This is where most people burn their energy, their peace, and their lives. They try to manage other people's opinions. They replay past mistakes, wishing they could rewrite them. They obsess over outcomes that haven't happened yet. They fight reality instead of responding to it. And the more they try to control the uncontrollable, the more powerless they feel. The Stoics saw this clearly. They drew a sharp line through life and said, everything falls into one of two categories. What is up to you, and what is not your actions. Yours, your judgments. Yours, your effort. Yours, your character. Yours, other people's behavior. Not yours, the past. Not yours, the future. Not yours, luck, timing, outcomes. Never yours. Epictetus said it simply. Some things are in our control, and others are not. That sentence doesn't sound revolutionary until you actually live it. Because most suffering comes from confusing these two categories. You feel anxious because you want certainty. You feel angry because you want fairness. You feel stuck because you want guarantees. But life doesn't offer those. So you exhaust yourself fighting battles you cannot win. Here's the shift. Stoicism isn't about pretending you don't care. It's about caring deeply and about the right things. When you pour your energy into what you control, you feel grounded. When you pour it into what you don't, you feel helpless. Think about it. You can't control whether someone respects you, but you can control whether you act with integrity. You can't control whether something fails, but you can control whether you show up fully. You can't control whether life hits you unfairly, but you can control whether it breaks your character. Marcus Aurelius wrote this during one of the darkest periods of Roman history. If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your judgment of it, and this you have the power to revoke. Your judgment, your interpretation, your story, that's where the real battle is. Not out there in the world, but in the meaning you assign to what happens. Two people can experience the same event and walk away completely different. One collapses, the other adapts. The difference isn't strength, it's perspective. When you realize this, something clicks. You stop trying to control life and start mastering yourself. That doesn't make you passive, it makes you powerful. So in the next part, we'll break down what these emotions really are and why they are not your enemies. Part 4 is where emotional control actually begins. System was designed for immediate physical threats, predators, rival tribes, survival or death situations. But today your brain reacts to emails like predators, to social rejection like physical exile, to imagined futures like immediate danger. So it floods your body with stress, even when nothing is happening. Your emotions are doing their job. They're just running outdated software. Seneca captured this perfectly when he said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." Think about it. Most of your fear is about what might happen. Most of your anger is about the story you tell yourself about what happened. Most of your anxiety is about futures that never arrive. You're not reacting to reality. You're reacting to interpretation. And here's the crucial shift. You don't need to eliminate emotions. You need to stop being ruled by them. When fear shows up, you don't have to obey it. You can acknowledge it and then decide if it's useful. When anger rises, you don't have to explode. You can pause and ask what boundary actually matters. When anxiety grips you, you don't have to believe everything it says. You can ground yourself in what's real right now. This is the difference between being emotional and being aware. Awareness creates space, and space is where control lives. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself of this daily. You are not your impressions. You have the power to examine them. That examination, that pause is everything. Because the moment you stop reacting automatically, you regain authorship over your life. But philosophy alone isn't enough. You need to know exactly what to do when fear tightens, when anger flashes, when anxiety spirals. And that's where we go next. In the next part, we'll break down practical, Stoic techniques for facing fear without being paralyzed by it. Part 5. How Stoics disarm fear before it paralyzes you. Fear has a favorite hiding place: the future. It lives in what if. What if I fail? What if they reject me? What if everything goes wrong? Fear rarely attacks what's happening now. It attacks what might happen later. The Stoics understood this, and instead of running from fear, they walked straight toward it. They had a practice with a complicated name: Premeditatio Malorum, but the idea is simple. Imagine the worst, calmly, not to panic, not to spiral, but to remove fear's mystery, because fear thrives on vagueness, on the unknown, on blurry outcomes. When you name the worst-case scenario clearly, fear loses its grip. Ask yourself, what am I actually afraid of? Losing a job? Being rejected? Failing publicly? Now take it one step further. If that happened, then what? You'd feel pain. You'd feel disappointment. You'd adapt. Seneca used to practice living with less on purpose. He slept on the floor, ate simple food, wore rough clothes, not because he enjoyed suffering, but because he wanted proof. Proof that even if everything was stripped away, he would still be okay. That's the real antidote to fear. Not optimism, not denial. Capability. Fear weakens when you realize, I can handle this. Think about it honestly. Most of the things you feared in the past, did they destroy you? Or did you survive, learn, and move forward? Fear says this will end you. Reality usually says this will change you. When you rehearse difficulty with clarity instead of panic, fear stops controlling you. You stop asking, what if this goes wrong? And start asking, if it does, how will I respond? That shift alone turns fear into preparation. Marcus Aurelius wrote, choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. That doesn't mean pretending things don't hurt. It means refusing to let fear decide who you become. You still take risks. You still care. You still move forward, just without shaking, because now fear isn't a command. It's information, and you decide what to do with it. But fear isn't the fastest emotion. Anger is. And anger causes more damage in seconds than fear does in months. So in the next part, we're tackling the most dangerous emotion of all, and the Stoic pause that prevents irreversible mistakes. Part 6. The Stoic pause that stops anger from ruining you. Anger doesn't ask for permission. It erupts. It accelerates. It convinces you to act now, and that's why it's so dangerous. Most regrets aren't caused by fear. They're caused by things said or done in anger. The Stoics knew this well. Marcus Aurelius warned himself, how much more harmful are the effects of anger than the causes of it? In other words, what you do while angry usually hurts you more than whatever triggered it. Anger is a reaction to perceived injustice. A boundary crossed, a sense of disrespect. That doesn't make it wrong. It makes it unpowerful, and power without control is destruction. So what's the Stoic solution? It's not suppression. It's not exploding and apologizing later. It's the pause, a deliberate gap between stimulus and response. When anger flares, your body floods with adrenaline, your vision narrows, your mind demands immediate action. This is the worst moment to decide anything, so you stop. You breathe, you delay. Even a few seconds is enough, because anger peaks quickly and fades just as fast. If you don't feed it, it burns out. Epictetus said, it is not events that disturb us, but our judgments about them. Someone cuts you off in traffic when that's the event. Your judgment, they disrespected me. That judgment ignites the anger. But what if the story changes? What if they didn't see you? What if they're rushing to an emergency? What if it simply doesn't matter? Anger collapses when its story collapses. This doesn't mean letting people walk over you. It means choosing response over reaction. Sometimes the right response is firmness. Sometimes it's distance. Sometimes it's silence. But it's never blind rage. Each time you pause instead of reacting, you reclaim control. You train yourself to lead your emotions, not be led by them. That's real strength. Over time, something changes. Anger still appears, but it no longer owns you. You feel it, and you stay intact. And now there's one emotion left. The quietest one. The most persistent. The one that pretends it's helping. Anxiety. and it steals more lives than fear or anger ever could. So in the final part, we'll uncover how Stoics dissolve anxiety, not by fixing the future, but by reclaiming the present. Part 7. Owning your mind and living unshaken. Anxiety is different from fear. Fear is sharp and sudden. Anxiety is slow and constant. It doesn't shout. It whispers. It disguises itself as preparation. It says, I'm just keeping you safe. I'm helping you plan ahead. But anxiety isn't preparation. It's fear stretched across time. It pulls you out of the present and traps you in imagined futures. Problems that don't exist yet. Disasters that may never arrive. The Stoics saw this clearly. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, do not let the future disturb you. You will meet it if you have to, with the same weapons of reason which today arm you against the present. Translation: you don't need to solve tomorrow today. Anxiety survives in the gap between now and what if. Close that gap and anxiety weakens. So when anxiety grips you, ask a simple question. Right now, in this exact moment, am I safe? Are you breathing? Are you here? Is there an emergency unfolding in front of you? Most of the time, the answer is no. That's your anchor. The present moment is the only place where you actually have power. The Stoics didn't deny the future mattered. They refused to let it steal today. So you ground yourself. Feel your feet on the floor. Notice the weight of your body. Take a slow breath. You're not avoiding life. You're returning to it. And when you do this consistently, something remarkable happens. Your circumstances may stay the same. The uncertainty may remain. The challenges don't magically disappear, but you change. You stop waiting for life to calm down before you feel okay. You stop believing peace depends on control. You stop outsourcing your inner state to external conditions. You notice space. Space between a thought and belief. Space between emotion and action. Space between what happens and who you choose to be. And in that space, you are free. The Stoics had a word for this: apatheia. Not numbness, not indifference. Freedom from being ruled by destructive emotions. You still feel, you still care. But you are no longer owned. Thoughts come and go like weather. Fear passes, anger fades. Anxiety drifts through, and you remain. The observer, the chooser, the steady ground beneath the storm. This isn't a one-time transformation. It's a daily practice. You will forget. You will react. You will get pulled back into old patterns. That's human. Marcus Aurelius wrote reminders to himself every single day, not because he was weak, but because mastery requires repetition. The prison was the belief that your mind controlled you. Now you know the truth. You own your mind. And when you own your mind, nothing can truly shake you. Subscribe to the Stoic Corner. Turn on notifications out. This is only the beginning. Thank you for walking this path.